I think at some point we'll boycott it. Like that's gonna be the only way to kind of like fight for our rights.
On Wednesday in Rome, the world #1 walked into a press room and threatened to boycott Grand Slams over money.
Definitely, when you see the number and you see the amount that the player is receiving, I feel like the show is on us. I feel like without us, there wouldn't be a tournament and it wouldn't be that entertainment. So, like, definitely we deserve to be paid more.
On her 28th birthday, no less. A few hundred meters away, an unseeded 20-year-old ranked 42nd in the world walked onto a 3,720-seat marble stadium that had not a single ticket left. That is not a metaphor. That is what happened on May 6, 2026 at the Foro Italico. Aryna Sabalenka, four-time Grand Slam champion, top seed at Rome, delivered one of the most commercially loaded press conference statements the WTA has heard in years.
We girls, we easily can get together and go for the some of the things I feel like it's really unfair to the players. I think at some point it's going to get to this.
Alex Eala, carrying no seed and no safety net, delivered a comeback win in 3 sets to a crowd that flew in from Manila, London, and Madrid to be in that building. The contrast that followed, all between who actually fills a stadium and who demands more from theirs, is the story Rome did not see coming. 9 days before Rome, Eala was on the other end of a brutal scoreline in Madrid. Elise Mertens, a hardened top 20 clay court veteran, handed her a 2-6, 1-6 defeat in round 2, the kind of loss that follows a player across the news cycle for weeks. 9 days later, she was in Rome, drawing Magdalena Fresh in round 1, a former top 25 player with wins over top 10 opponents. Not a soft opener for a first-time winner at this tournament. What happened between those 2 points is the reason Stadio Nicola Pietrangeli ran out of tickets before the match even began. To understand what made Wednesday so striking, you need to understand what was happening simultaneously on both sides of the Foro Italico grounds. On one side, the Italian Open's most heavily promoted session was taking shape. The tournament's own official communications listed Sabalenka, Goff, and Berrettini as the center court day 4 openers. 3 of the biggest names in the sport stacked on a single card, working together to sell 10,500 seats. That same week, Italian fans were posting publicly on social media, furious at last-minute price spikes on premium sessions. Sportskita captured the sentiment bluntly on May 6th. Fans accused the tournament of killing tennis, with one quote reading, "They have no shame whatsoever." Tickets for those premium sessions, the ones headlined by the world #1, remained listed on official and resale platforms hours before play. On the other side of those same grounds, a 3,720-seat court ringed by marble statues of athletes, the most photographed venue in tennis, was completely sold out. Not for a seeded player, not for a Grand Slam champion, for Alex Eala. The Philippine flag was everywhere in that stadium. The chants, "Alex, Alex," echoed off those marble figures the way they had never been designed to. Veteran ABS-CBN broadcaster Dian Castillejo, one of the most respected Filipino sports journalists in the business, was on the ground in Rome. Her dispatch that evening was 4 words and a feeling: Pinoy, pride in Italia. That is the contrast this tournament handed history on a Wednesday afternoon. Start with what Eala actually did on that court before we talk about what it meant. She took the first set 6-0, clinical, dominant, the kind of opening set that announces a player before the crowd has finished settling into their seats. Then Fresh, a proven clay court competitor, adjusted. She broke Eala's rhythm in the second set and leveled it 3-6. The match was alive. The crowd was louder for it, not quieter. Third set, Eala went down a break. In a different year, against a different backdrop, that is where the story ends. Instead, she broke back. She steadied. She served it out 6-4. Her first ever victory at the Italian Open, FIFA's official, verified, recorded on WTA.com, completed right there in front of 3,720 people who had paid whatever it took to be in that building. When she turned toward the crowd after the match, she did not pump her fist. She did not scream. She did not perform. She simply offered a wave, quiet, direct, and completely earned. The crowd answered for her. Now place yourself in the shoes of a tournament director watching the attendance data come in that same afternoon. Your most promoted session on your biggest court needed 3 headline names to move tickets. An unseeded number, 42, filled a sold-out stadium alone, without a single promotional push beyond her own presence. The math speaks clearly. That is not a one-day anomaly. Madrid, just weeks earlier, told the same story. Courtside seats for Eala's sessions reportedly moved at premium prices, independent of any official campaign. 2 consecutive WTA 1000 events, 2 separate cities, 2 sold-out or near sold-out atmospheres driven by a player who doesn't even carry a seating, first Madrid, then Rome. The trajectory is not coincidence. It is market behavior. Then layer on what was unfolding simultaneously at Sabalenka's May 6th press conference. The world number 1, speaking on her 28th birthday, told the room, "Without us, there wouldn't be a tournament, and there wouldn't be that entertainment. I feel like definitely we deserve to be paid more." She continued, "I think at some point we will boycott it. I feel like that's going to be the only way to fight for our rights." There is a version of that argument that carries weight. The women's game has a genuine prize money gap with the men's game, and Sabalenka is not wrong to raise it. But the timing of those words, delivered on the same afternoon that Filipino fans were paying premium last-minute prices to watch an unseeded player on the sport's smallest show court, reframes the entire statement. The entertainment was there on Wednesday. It was on Pietrangeli, and nobody had to boycott anything to put those 3,720 people in their seats. The fans who filled that stadium know what they witnessed. They recognized this trajectory months ago in Miami, in Madrid. In the early round matches, the broader coverage skipped past. The world is now counting the empty seats while catching up to what those fans already knew was coming. Sabalenka herself supplied the most telling authority in this story, and she did it without intending to. 4-time Grand Slam champion, world number 1 for the better part of 3 years, the undisputed face of the WTA's current era. When she speaks in a press room, the sport's commercial machinery listens. Her claim, "Without us, there wouldn't be a tournament," is the kind of statement that carries institutional weight. Turn it around. While she was saying those words to a group of journalists, a sold-out stadium full of Filipino supporters was proving that the entertainment she described can be generated by a 20-year-old ranked 42nd who has never won a match in Rome before Wednesday. The authority in Sabalenka's quote is real. The irony in its timing is inescapable. Gian Castillejo, a veteran broadcaster who has covered Philippine sports through decades of milestones, who was physically in the Pietrangeli stands on May 6th, did not describe what she witnessed in analytical terms. Pinoy pride in Italia. That is the testimony of someone who has been at these events long enough to know when something is different. When a journalist with her credentials abandons measured language for 4-word exclamations, the scene in front of her has earned it. What happened at Pietrangeli on Wednesday matters far beyond one first-round result at a WTA 1000. The Italian Open is facing a structural identity crisis it did not plan for. Italian local fans are revolting against price hikes on premium sessions. The tournament's own marketing machine is stacking 3 superstars to fill 1 center court card. And simultaneously, an unseeded Filipino player is generating organic, diaspora-driven demand that no pricing algorithm created and no marketing spend manufactured. Tournament directors from Rome to Roland Garros, which opens on May 24th, are watching how this plays out. The same week that established the Sabalenka boycott threat as the WTA's dominant news cycle, Eala quietly reminded the sport what organic audience gravity looks like. The French Open draw drops in 2 weeks. When it does, the question of whether Eala makes a deep run at a clay court Grand Slam, and what that would mean for crowds at Chatrier or Lenglen, shifts from hypothetical to imminent. Philippine sports media is already mobilizing travel packages. The diaspora across Europe is already tracking her half of the bracket. But before Paris, there is a more immediate reckoning. Eala's round 2 in Rome is a rematch against Wang Xinyu. the player who knocked her out of this tournament in round 1 last year. She has spoken publicly about that loss as a reference point. Everything about Wednesday's win, the comeback from a breakdown in the third, the sold-out crowd, the first ever Rome victory, was prologue. The rematch answers whether the narrative has turned or merely paused. 9 days before those marble statues witnessed a Filipino sellout, Eala walked off a clay court in Madrid, having lost 2-6, 1-6 to Elise Mertens. Straight sets, a scoreline that would silence most 20-year-olds for a week. She didn't go quiet, she went to Rome. And when she was asked after the French win about what carried her through the third set breakdown, she did not reach for a dramatic declaration. Her answer was precise and honest. I was just very happy that I was able to come back after being down a break and find the confidence in my game and play aggressive again. No embellishment, no victim narrative, no boycott talk. 9 days after Madrid, down a break in the third on a court packed with 3,720 people who needed her to hold her nerve, she played aggressive again. That is the entire answer. The marble figures ringing Pietrangeli have stood there since the 1930s. They have watched clay court history made on that surface for nearly a century. On May 6, 2026, they watched a 20-year-old from the Philippines, ranked 42nd in the world, fill every seat in the building and complete a comeback win 9 days removed from a Madrid bagel line. The same afternoon, the world number 1, 4 Grand Slams, a full press corps, the most marketed player in the sport, sat in a press room and told the tennis world it needs to pay her more. That is not a critique of her argument. That is a portrait of 2 players relating to their audience in completely opposite ways. One demands the room, the other earns it. Aryna Sabalenka said, "Without us, there wouldn't be entertainment." On Wednesday in Rome, the entertainment was already sold out. The rematch with Wang Xinyu is next. The player who ended Eala's 2025 Rome campaign in round 1 is waiting on the other side of that draw. If Eala wins and center court becomes a realistic path for round 3, here is the question worth staking your claim on in the comments. Can Alex Eala fill 10,500 seats at Foro Italico faster than the world number 1 can? And what happens to the ticket market if she does? Drop your prediction below. This channel tracks every match, every ticket surge, and every press conference that accidentally makes its own point. If you are already following this story, you are not late. But the Roland Garros draw drops in 2 weeks and the conversation is about to get louder. Subscribe now and be part of the record when it does.